All right, what's up, everybody? Really excited about this episode of Angles. I was really fortunate to have Dan Schuller from PB Elder Law join me. And you may be thinking, like, what do you mean elder law? Like, what are you talking about? So a lot of you who are listening, you have older parents, or maybe, you're towards the end of your career and you struggle to have these conversations or even think about, your will, what are things that can happen if I don't have the certain documents in place? What is all this stuff about nursing homes and Medicaid? He walks through all that. He's an awesome guy, really easygoing, but really intelligent. His firm's amazing. We also then got into talking about business ownership, lessons he's learned about leadership. A really interesting conversation. He's just a great guy, great personality. I think you'll really enjoy it. So check it out. And as always, this episode is brought to you by Richmond Vona. Can't do this without my firm. Really, really proud of the work that we do for injured people here in Western New York and throughout the state. So give it a listen and enjoy. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. I know we talked about doing this a while ago and took a little while. And actually, I will tell you, you are the first practicing lawyer we've had on.
Oh, boy.
So you have big shoes to fill.
There's a big bar then, huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously you and I have gotten to know each other really well over a long period of time now. And our firms do a lot of work together. And, you guys are, in my opinion, by far and away the number one trust and estates, planning firm in the area. I think one of the best in the state, if not the best. And we're lucky to have you guys here. And, I think sometimes, people think about things like wills, trusts, whatever, like, man, it's like, I guess, do I really need to do that? And so I figured it'd be cool to have you on, talk about some of the stuff that you guys do, how you got to where you are. And then I actually want to talk to you too about your rapid firm growth.
Yeah, sure.
I saw you just open another office.
We did, yeah. So January 1st, it's actually, we'll be opening up a firm in East Aurora. It's actually my former partner who I worked with for 10 years before I came where I am. We have an ongoing relationship and brought it up to him and he said, yeah, sounds like a great idea. So January 1st, we'll have an East Aurora location.
It's awesome. So now you can service people kind of throughout the whole region, which is really cool.
Yep.
But I guess taking a step back, maybe you could just kind of walk us through a little bit, how you, why you decided on this area of the law, why you're passionate about it, and kind of talk to us a little bit about what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm with Fallsgraf, Beinhauer, Greer, Harris, Schuller. We go by PB Elder Law because it's too many lawyers' names. So that's how we're known in the community. We do trust and estate planning, estate administration after someone's passed. And then one of our big niches is we do a lot of last-minute nursing home planning for people that are ill, need skilled nursing, and we're able to protect a significant amount of their assets even at the last second. So the reason I got into this field, quite frankly, was the firm that I was formerly at. One of the partners there started doing that kind of work, and I got to meet with people and really see that most people don't want to talk about this stuff. Mm-hmm. It's dark. You're talking about death and future affairs and complications in your family. But the consistent theme after was, I feel better now that it's done. And you're working with people who come in very nervous, but at the end, they're kind of happy it's done. You're putting them in a good spot. You're taking care of whatever their family needs to avoid, hopefully, those future complications down the road. So that sense of gratification you get with the clients is really what pushed me to keep doing it.
Yeah. What do you think in your experience is the reason why, so many, and we're talking people who know they need to talk to you, who just put it off. Is it just what you said? Hey, I don't even want to think about that. I don't want to think about death, whether it's for me or my family members, what do you think it is?
I think that's a lot of it. I think there's also the misconception that, hey, it's not going to happen to me.
Yeah.
Right. So, whether it's the client who's 30 years old and says, well, I don't have anything. Well, I don't need a will. Why do I need that? Well, what happens if something happens to you and your spouse, and who's going to raise your kids?
Right.
So it's not necessarily even about how much money you have. It's about, if you have minor children, making sure that that's set up, because there's sets of in-laws, and one set may be the right choice and the other one may not be the right choice. So, making sure you and your spouse can collectively identify those things. But I think a lot of it is just the fear of talking about something that it's death. Right? Yeah. No one wants to talk about that, and I'm always going to be able to do these things for myself, when in reality, as we age, you need help.
Yeah.
And that's the norm. And the more you're planned, especially when there's multiple children involved, who's going to be that person, who are going to be those point people, instead of letting a court decide, for example.
Yeah,
so,
you don't want that.
No.
What's your personal approach to maybe making people feel at ease when they come in? Because like you said, I can imagine they're nervous or like,
Right.
Maybe like we deal with this at our firm. Like they've never talked to a lawyer before, like what's your approach to that?
Try to relate to them. I mean, I'm going through the same thing with my family, my folks, my partners. I've lived through and am living through them going through it with their families. We're dealing with the same types of issues they are, having the same types of conversations. Try to keep it light. I mean, how you see I'm dressed today, this is how I dress in the office.
Yeah,
we don't wear a suit and tie, right? It's light, because the conversations can be heavy, but just making people feel comfortable. And again, my job is never to tell people what to do, just like your job isn't to tell people what to do. Your job is to make sure they're informed so they can make the best decision that they think, is for their family. So that's kind of the approach. And most people, I think that deal with us will say the same thing at the end. I feel a lot better. That wasn't nearly as bad as I expected it was going to be.
Yeah, I think that's actually a good point too. I think that's a misconception about hiring a lawyer for anything, that the lawyer is going to force you to do things. Right. And in reality, right, our job is to say, hey, this is our area of so-called expertise, or we're going to show you what we believe you should do, and tell you why you should do this and not do this. But like ultimately, it's up to you.
Yeah, I mean, my partner, maybe infamously always says it's not illegal to make bad decisions, and that's true to some extent.
Yeah.
So it's not our job to tell you what to do. It's our job to point out the things we don't think you're thinking about. Just in our practice, and the same thing in your practice, pitfalls you see down the road because you didn't think about when you did it originally. When you're setting these things up. So especially when you're talking about people with second families, or somebody's got a disability in the family, or the people potentially facing long-term care costs. So the goal is really to just kind of point out all the potential logistics and let the client make informed decisions.
So for, let's say, like the average person that comes to you, what do you think in your experience are the biggest misconceptions, or like the areas where they're like, whoa, like I did not realize that?
I think there's two of the biggest ones, which is I don't need a will, my spouse is going to get it all. Mm-hmm. And that's just quite frankly not true. In New York State, we have laws in place where if you die without a will, and if you die with a will, it goes generally to the person you're appointing, unless there's different beneficiaries or different joint owners. But if you die without a will, New York State then dictates how it's going to go. Mm-hmm. So that could end up with a portion with your spouse and the other portion with your kids. And I think most people's family plan is the spouses are going to get it all first, and then we'll leave it to the kids on the back end.
Yeah.
The second big one is, why do I need a power of attorney? We're married. I can do everything for each other. And then you explain to the client that if something happens to your spouse and they don't have that document, their individually titled assets are frozen if they can't sign one until you get a guardian in place. And a guardian can run someone like $10,000 to get one of those set up. Power of attorney is a fraction of the cost. So those are the two major misconceptions that we see off the bat. And that's why people come in, we tell them basic 3 documents you got to have: your will, your power of attorney, and your healthcare proxy. And then depending on what stage of life they're in, we're talking about trust planning or other things too.
Yeah, that's actually, even, obviously like our firms, we have a really good relationship, and, we talk to you guys about this all the time, but we have situations too. And like, nobody expects to get in an accident. Right. Obviously we get that. And to most people, it's never going to happen, but things happen. And then, one of our first questions always when sadly, like someone calls like, hey, my husband, my wife, my kid, whatever it is, like got in this bad accident and they're in the hospital. It's like, well, do you have a power of attorney?
Right.
Do you have, a healthcare proxy? And when usually the answers are no, we're stuck. Like there's like this holding pattern. There's not much we can do. Yep. And it's such a simple thing to do.
Right. Yeah. It is. I think that, there's again, this misconception out there. Well, that's my child. That's my spouse. I'm their beneficiary, whatever. We can just handle affairs for each other. But there's a distinction between what happens after death and what you're allowed to do during someone's lifetime. So that, I always say to people, the power of attorney is the most important thing you can have during your lifetime for the reasons you just pointed out. So no one expects to get in a car accident. No one expects to have, all of a sudden a diagnosis of Alzheimer's, dementia, et cetera. So having that document in place to make sure the people you want to act for you can actually do it is critical from a time and a logistics standpoint.
Yeah. I got to imagine too now, with the boomers, getting older and older, you're seeing more and more people come to, whether it's their kids or the boomers themselves,
right?
Starting to try to like make plans, in the unfortunate event that they need assistance when they get older. And I think that's something that people always like, a lot of people like kind of know like, oh, Medicare planning, Medicaid planning, like they think about like, they hear like this look back period, like that kind of stuff, but then no one ever really acts on it.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Cause that stuff's really important.
It is. So that's probably the largest practice area, part of our practice is the Medicaid planning. And without getting too far in the weeds, if a loved one needs a nursing home, those run 15 to 21 grand a month right now.
Yeah, it's insane.
It's insane. And like anything in life, I don't expect costs are going to go down.
Yeah.
So, Medicaid is the primary payor. And I think there's a couple of myths. One is I have to be poor. That's just not true. You had to have either started doing your planning 5 years in advance, or even if you don't have that, there's last minute planning that we can do to still save about half of that loved one's assets for their family members. So, when I have people come in and I hear, well, this attorney or this agency said I had to go broke to qualify for Medicaid, it's disheartening because the reality is that's not true. But unless you get to someone like us who knows how to do that to preserve those assets at the last minute, once the money's spent, it's spent. There's nothing we can do. So, the critical piece is, that 65 to 75 is usually the age range where people start to get things out of their name, houses, other assets, whether it's an asset protection trust, or life estate deed. Though that's really the ripe age, because at that point they're retired. They have a better understanding of what the next chapter in life looks like. Whereas if you're 50, you're still in the prime of working. You don't know what that's going to look like at that point.
So let's break this down though. Like, all right, I'm gonna give you a situation. All right, someone comes to you and whatever, they're 65, and their spouse, all of a sudden something happened. Mm-hmm. They get dementia, something, and they need to go into like say an assisted living facility, a nursing home, whatever. But they've done none of this planning, but they've saved, they have a nice little nest egg of money. They have like their house, they have all this kind of stuff, but they've done no planning at all. And the person literally needs, like they're going in like right now. What happens? Like, how does that play out if they haven't done any planning?
That's the crisis planning.
Yeah.
So that's where if you don't go to an elder law attorney, and to be clear, this, all attorneys aren't the same, right?
Oh,
I couldn't do any of the work that you do and vice versa, right? So, you're looking at that point for an elder law attorney who does last minute Medicaid planning. There are certain exemptions for the spouse living in the community. They can keep a house, they can keep about $159,000 in cash, they can keep retirement accounts, and they can keep some income. But let's say there's $300,000 more in cash than they're allowed to have. Working with someone like us, we can save about half of that. Even if the person's got both feet in the nursing home, we can save about half of it, not for the spouses, but for their children. The other half's going to go to the nursing home. So kind of the rule of thumb is if you get assets out of your name more than 5 years in advance, and then there's a care event, you save 100% of the asset.
Okay.
Don't have the 5 years, there's still the 50% plan. But you need the kids, generally it's the kids who are making the call for their parents, are the ones that need to know that this does exist, because the facilities are not going to tell you it exists. The hospital's not going to tell you it exists, because the difference between a monthly Medicaid patient and a nursing home can be upwards of about $9,000 a month that the facility gets. So what incentive do they have to tell you, hey, go see a lawyer and do this type of planning? They just tell you, spend until you're broke.
So basically, essentially what's happening is, say you don't go to an elder law attorney. You're just going to get these bills and they're just going to keep draining, and you're going to pay cash out of your account until you lower that amount down to which you qualify for Medicaid.
Yep.
And then Medicaid will start paying. But like you're saying, these facilities get more money for the same exact care and treatment from the cash than they would Medicaid, so they have no incentivization to tell you to go talk to somebody. That's brutal.
The only difference between a private pay and a Medicaid patient is a shared room. There's no difference in treatment. They're not allowed to legally treat you any differently. But the difference in our $300,000 example is $150,000.
Yeah.
Whereas I've saved you $150,000 for your loved ones, whereas the facility is just going to get $150,000, and you're probably thinking, well, that's going to go over a long period of time. That's like 10 months.
Yeah.
And that's at a $15,000 facility. If you're in a $21,000 facility, in 8 months, your money's gone. So the time, it's quick that money can go away. And then the worst thing we see is when clients have come in and facilities, non-lawyer Medicaid agencies, we'll call them, have told the client you have to spend your retirement. Now we see if they've blown through hundreds of thousands of dollars in retirement, which by law is the principal is protected. You don't even have to spend that, but now the money's gone and there's nothing we can do.
Oh, man. Wait, and who's telling them to do that?
Facilities, non-lawyer agencies. There's agencies out there who claim to do Medicaid work. And look, there is a there is a need for those agencies. When you have a client who comes in, for example, and is Medicaid eligible, they don't need to retain someone like me, right? They don't need to pay the legal fees to do that. But when you have a client who comes into your office and has $300,000 more than they're allowed to have, and you're doing their application and you're telling them to spend down or they're spending their IRAs, that's a problem. And that's why many of these agencies have actually gone in front of the Unauthorized Practice of Law Committee because of these particular issues. So it's an ongoing battle throughout the state where, again, there's a need, but it's the idea of you have to know, like, I shouldn't be doing this. This is probably beyond what I should be doing.
And that's like, we, on our end, we've had, so many cases where, we're representing, either the individual in the facility or their spouse or maybe their son, their daughter, whatever it is. And you know this better than I do, but just from our end, it's like people are devastated that they didn't plan in time and maybe they've come to us when it's far past the time where we can set them up with you guys. And it's just like, it is what it is now. And they lost like all of their nest egg that they wanted. Like they built up this money to give to their kids or give to their spouse to have, this sort of lifestyle after they retired, and it's all gone, and it's sad.
Yeah, that's why we do so much community education. Because, we spend a lot of time in senior centers and other places. It's not even necessarily for the point of drumming up business. It's for the point of people don't know, right? And who's going to tell them? Our field is not like a personal injury field, for example, where there's, everyone's advertising they do personal injury work. There's not a whole heck of a lot of people that do what we do. So unless they get to someone like us, where are they going to hear about what's right and wrong? So that's why we spend a lot of time out in the community trying to dispel these myths about, hey, you got to be broke, you got to spend through everything, just to tell people there are other options.
And you may not want to say it, but I'll say it because I'll stand behind it. Like nobody does it at the level you guys do it at.
We do a lot of it.
You do it at a really high level.
No, thanks.
Your partners are amazing. So let's go back. So let's say you have somebody listening now and they're like, whoa, this resonates with me. My mom or my dad, are getting up there in years. I know I have to have this conversation with them, and we got to come, meet with people like you and kind of discuss the plan. In the instance that, his or her parents do have like a nice little nest egg, like you're talking about, a few $100,000 or whatever it is, and they come see you. I mean, I know there's a lot of different options, but in general, if they come to you early, like kind of what kind of things could they expect to be for you to talk to them about? Like what would like generally a plan look like?
So making sure they have the basic 3 documents, the will, power of attorney, and healthcare proxy. We're going to be talking about trusts. The one thing that drives me nuts is clients who come in, they were referred by their financial advisor to come over, or someone like your office, and then they say, well, I have a will. My lawyer said I have everything I need. And
we don't say that for the record.
You don't say that. No, you know better. You guys know better. But there's so many times clients come in and they're like, well, my lawyer drew a will. I'm good. What do I need? And quite frankly, I guess I would equate that to a personal injury case when the insurance company offers you $25,000 and the case is worth 20 times more than that, right? It's the first step. It's not the last step, right? So, we're going to be talking about trusts. We're going to be talking about starting to get stuff out of your name so that if we can clear the 5-year bar, the asset's protected. We're never going to tell you to put everything you have in a trust because you still need to live, right? So a lot of it is working with the client to figure out what are their financial needs. How much do they need beyond their income each month? So we can determine what's appropriate to put into a trust. Most of the time it's a house, because with the house, they can still live there. They still pay the expenses. They don't really notice an impact on their lifestyle whatsoever. But if they clear that 5-year bar, they've protected probably one of their most valuable assets.
Right. Yeah, it's huge. For anybody out there, look, Dan's firm handled everything for my parents and, that's how much trust I have in them. But for real, it's important. It's like no one wants to have this. Even when I had this conversation with my parents, I'm lucky. Like they understand and they listen to me because I know enough to be dangerous that they need to work with you. It's still a tough conversation to have.
Right.
Do you ever give advice to people about how to approach their parents? Because no one wants to go have that conversation.
Yeah, that's tough. Each family dynamic is different. I would say that some parents are very collaborative in the sense that they want everything done with all the siblings, and that's fine. And others, they're very private. We see it, especially a lot of times after the holidays. You come home, you haven't seen mom or dad for a while. Things are declining. There's a push to come in. I think it really is. Look, we're starting with a consultation. You're going to sit and hang out with us for, about an hour and a half. We're going to talk about your stuff. And if you don't like what you hear, you leave.
Yeah.
Right. So you're not binding yourself to do anything. And I think with that approach, most people at that point get to learn who we are, what we're doing, why it's important. And again, they let that guard down a little bit.
Yeah.
And then it's like, okay, this makes sense. And then the conversation generally flows from there.
Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. So there's got to be some horror stories, and it's like they're funny, but they're sad, right?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
like it's funny in the sense that it's almost like a nervous laugh, like
Yeah.
it's like a cautionary tale,
Right.
Because I'm sure you've had some really sad stories where people come in and just like, hey, because they didn't do X, Y, and Z, which they easily could have and probably knew they should have, something crazy happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that like kind of comes to mind?
I think that a lot of times it's the planning where we start including maybe in-laws, or it's the planning where we have the boyfriend-girlfriend measure and we start doing things. I had a case, I don't know, within the last 5 years now. Guy had a girlfriend, named her on a life insurance policy for about $1 million. They broke up. He never changed it. Tragically killed in a motorcycle accident.
Oh.
The ex gets $1 million instead of the family getting anything, just because I think it was one of those things where I did it, put it aside, I'm not going to look at it again type of thing, which is not great advice. You should constantly be looking at what do my beneficiaries say, what do my estate planning documents say. And then the other one is the families who are insistent upon writing, their son or daughter-in-law in. And I will, if you do any work with me, I'm going to tell you right at the get-go, I don't subscribe to that. Because I've seen where clients have done that. They set up a trust, for example, if my son or daughter dies, their loved one gets it, and now they got divorced, that person passed away, and they never changed it. Now you got an ex-daughter-in-law, ex-son-in-law who's inheriting a bunch of money. So as a rule of thumb, I'm very much stick to the bloodline. Those people have their own inheritance rights, but that's the kind of chaos you see where there isn't a lot of foresight into what are we doing with the planning. So,
right.
Big thing is constantly be reviewing your documents. The big one, and I'm sure you tell people this too, death, disability, and divorce, the 3 Ds, right? Those are you should be automatically looking at updating things and changing things to avoid those kind of horror stories.
Yeah, and the earlier the better, right? I mean, I think of some stuff like in the context of what we do where, some of our clients are elderly and unfortunately something bad happens and say there's multiple kids. Mm-hmm. So we see this a lot. This is really sad. Like we see this in say like mesothelioma cases where, I get brought into a house and me and Keith, we go out and like, it's really sad. Someone has mesothelioma. They're older as these cases are. And they have multiple kids and there's an adult son or daughter that doesn't really come around much or that they have some sort of issue with. And he or she is like off someplace. But then all of a sudden, like antenna starts going up with like all the kids, like, wait a minute, there's gonna be a lot of money coming in here. Mm-hmm. And they start circling like sharks. Yep. Right. And it's crazy. Like it's obvious. Like I've learned to like be in these rooms and be like, whoa. Just by the questions this person's asking or like how interested they are in something that's going on, you got to watch out for that. And, so we're always like forcing, like really like not forcing, but like pushing as hard as we can to meet with you guys and be like, hey, if you don't have a will, you need one now because you're of sound mind. You don't want to be doing this thing later because then you've probably seen a lot of fights between like adult children over like the proceeds from an estate.
All the time. That's why, we sign, I couldn't even tell you how many wills per year and estate plans per year. And the reason why you're doing it under the guise of a lawyer is to make sure that my kids can't contest it down the road or whoever these beneficiaries are can't contest it. That doesn't mean they won't. We live in New York State. People love to sue people. But if we always do it the same way, because I'm not going to remember the circumstances of signing this will with someone 6 years ago.
Right.
But that's why we always do it the same way. The only people who are in the room when I sign documents are if it's the single person, my paralegal, myself, or the husband, the wife. There's no kids in the room when we're signing those types of estate planning documents. Because then if we're ever called to testify, again, we won't remember the specifics, but we can talk about this is how we always do it. So we know we didn't do it differently there because we never would have done it that way.
Right, that's smart, actually.
I think the other horror story is, circling back to that, is people with second families, second marriages. This is a huge one. So they each come into a second marriage, later in life marriage, or maybe 40s, 45, whatever it is. They each bring assets into the marriage. They each have kids from their prior marriage, right? And they'll say, well, I want to leave everything to my spouse. Okay. Well, then what happens, though, when your spouse passes, or you pass and you leave it to your spouse, and then they leave everything to your kids or their kids? What happens to your kids?
Yeah.
And then the light bulbs start to go off. But I see this all the time. People come in, I start talking to them. How long have you been married? Oh, we've only been married for a certain period of time. Well, why is your will set up this way? Why is your estate plan? You understand that you're going to leave everything to this spouse, and then you're going to rely on that spouse to actually keep their estate plan in place, because you can't make the will irrevocable. It can be changed.
Yeah.
So that's where we start looking at trust to make sure that both sides are protecting their future inheritance to their respective children instead of getting into that situation. So that's a big one. People with second marriages, with kids from prior, it's huge to make sure you're really kind of detailing your planning.
Yeah, I always tell our older clients, trust me, I'm sure you didn't want, you don't want your kids fighting. You want this going exactly where you want it to go. No questions asked. And this is the way to do it. You got to set it up the right way, because it's really sad. You've seen it way more than me, but in the case we handle, we've seen over and over, siblings who always got along. All of a sudden,
Until there's money.
It's like a brawl.
Yep.
And the money, because this sibling's in this situation, this one's in a slightly better or worse situation. This one feels well, I take care of mom and dad. You don't live here. You live 2 hours away, or it becomes really bad. And it's just so much cleaner if everything's laid out. And it's hey, yeah, you want to contest it, go for it, but you're not going to get anywhere with it.
Right.
Yeah.
And you see that all the time on the bank accounts, right? Where mom or dad is living at home, and they put son or daughter on the bank account because, I want them to be able to write checks and help me pay my bills. And maybe I want to give them a little bit more because they're providing all the care. Well, the presumption really has started to change from, well, if you're joint on a bank account, it's intended to be your money, whereas now it's labeled as a convenience account. So now a lot of times those siblings will have success in contesting that that's a convenience account. It's not really earmarked for that spouse. So again, planning techniques that can be put in place to avoid stuff like that.
Oh man. Yeah, it's it makes my, oh man, I think about all these situations just, again, that we just see on our end. I'm oh man, it's rough.
Yeah, it is. It's never ending, and people are, when it comes to money, you hit it on the head. I mean, that is the number one reason people are fighting in these estates. They're not fighting because, for the most part, I want that antique or I want this. It's money that brings people to a head. And again, good relationship. Well, now mom or dad gave you a little bit more. That's not fair. And now, again, we have this fighting. So if the planning is done right, the parents can do stuff like that, but oftentimes it's just not done right.
Yeah. So when people come to you for that first consultation, that first meeting, generally, what does that look like for you guys? What do you walk through? How do you kind of, work through that first time with them to ultimately come up with that initial plan?
Yeah, so we'll send them a planning questionnaire in the mail, and they'll complete that. And really, that's background information on who they are, husband, wife, their kids, grandkids. Find out if anyone's disabled in the family, because that's big information to know when you're doing planning, so that you don't potentially displace somebody who's disabled, displace their benefits, and then what their assets are. And then we'll sit down. Again, it generally runs for about an hour and a half. And we'll talk about everything basic, from wills, powers of attorney, and healthcare proxies, dispel all the myths there and how they actually work. Then we jump into the trust planning. So if it's someone that's got $10 million, we're not talking about nursing home planning. That person is self-insured. At that point, we're talking about estate tax planning, high net worth individuals. If it's someone that has, a house and maybe they have a couple $1,000,000 and some of it's retirement, we're probably talking about nursing home planning. So really what the client has and what their objectives are drives the conversation. And then we take them through and say, hey, if we're talking about asset protection, this is how Medicaid really works. This is how these trusts work. And if we're talking about high net worth individuals, we're talking about how we can try to protect your money from having to pay significant estate taxes on the back end.
Gotcha. You mentioned actually this, and I wanted to follow up with this. If somebody has a disabled family member, say they have an adult disabled daughter or son, how does that come into consideration? You mentioned being displaced. So that sounds terrifying.
So a lot of these people, a lot of disabled individuals are receiving some type of benefit, whether it's Medicaid for their medical needs or SSI as an income supplement. There are very strict resource allowances. And if you leave an inheritance to that disabled individual and you put them above their resource allowance, you've now kicked them off of those benefits.
Yep.
And getting on benefits is not a quick process.
Nope.
You know, SSI sometimes, depending on the circumstances, can take a couple of years to work through the system. And to get displaced from your benefit and then have to reapply is difficult. So there's planning techniques like using supplemental needs trusts where you can still leave money to the disabled individual, but the money isn't actually theirs. It's in a trust for their benefit. So you can supplement the things they need during their lifetime. They keep their benefits. And when they pass away, that money that's left over passes to beneficiaries instead of going to Medicaid or SSI at that point.
Let me ask you, so when money's in a trust, any type of trust, and is it also protected from, like, let's say your elderly parent is driving and rear ends somebody, and some lawyer wants to go past the insurance policy and try to get to, like, their assets? Is it protected from that kind of stuff too?
Depends on what kind of trust we're using. So with a revocable trust or a living trust, that's still your money. It's still your asset. If it's an irrevocable trust, it depends on what kind. There's a couple of different irrevocable trusts. One is for really estate tax planning to try to get things out of your estate. The other is from nursing home planning. So it really depends on what kind of case we're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, that's I think about that sometimes too. In some situations with my grandfather when he was later in life, he was banging into things. He was awesome, but it was like, yeah, you can't drive anymore. We gotta be careful here.
Yeah.
So, you know, I told you before we started, I mean, I also wanted to kind of talk to you about your journey now as like a business owner and a leader at your firm. And if there's anything else you want to talk about on, like, you know, your actual practice, I'm happy to talk about it. But I think it's interesting because, you know, I think about it all the time. Like, we always joke, but it's true. Like, we go to law school and they don't teach us how to be lawyers, and they definitely do not teach us how to run businesses. No. How's the journey been for you being a business owner?
It's interesting. You know, the first 10 years that I practiced law, I was a partner probably about 5 years out. I never once really thought of it as a business.
Yeah.
I always thought of it as, well, I'm a lawyer. You know, that's what I identify as. And my job is to solve people's problems.
Yeah.
But in doing so, the business was like an afterthought, right? Because there's always a fire. There's never not a fire at work. Somebody's file, there's always a problem. So, you know, so much of what we do in that mindset is just fix the problem and move on to the next thing. Yeah. And you have this operating entity that's really not getting it's not getting your attention. And it was you who kind of was the one that said, hey, dummy, like, it's a business. We need to look at this differently. So
that's only because somebody was like got in my ear about that.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And you know, kind of introduced us to some different outlets. And really, since that day, my perception as a lawyer and what I'm supposed to do is totally different. You know, it is a business. There are employees. There are things that need to be done every day. There's a changing landscape. So that mindset of, well, I don't just practice law, that's a piece of it, actually stepping back and what the term is always working, and, you know, not working in the business, but working on the business, taking time to step back and identify what does the business need, like what do we need to be doing, and really now we map out time to sit, and we're not doing cases. It's just, this is we're going to talk about the business. Here's what we need to accomplish within the next week on the business, and kind of move forward. Yeah,
I think this is obviously a big issue for lawyers. I think you see the same thing with, like, doctors, right? Like, we're like, you're quote unquote professionals. Well, I'm a lawyer. Like, I practice law, I help people. Or I'm a doctor, I practice medicine, and, you know, I help people. And, like, the business part seems like an afterthought, but, you know, it's like you really can't help people to your best of your ability if your business isn't run the right way. And there's so much that goes into that. Since you guys have started, like, focusing on that, like, what do you think have been, like, the positive impact or changes for you guys, especially, I mean, maybe even for you personally, like, you know, how, like, your lifestyle looks, or I mean more so like your work lifestyle?
I think that one of the big thing was the delegation aspect. You know, we're as so lawyers, hard. We're type A,
dude. It's
right?
So hard. Yeah.
I mean, everything about how I look at myself, I'm type A. I can do it better, but that's not how you grow. That's not how you allow people to grow. And if people don't feel invested in your business, then what's their purpose, right? So kind of the three of us stepping back and figuring out there's things that we have great employees, they can do those things for us. Invite them into the business more so that we can step back and work more upon, you know, on things that we should be working on. that was the big thing. And we still fight to this day about, that delegation aspect, because it always is, well, I can do it better, or I can do it quicker. And that's not true. It's not. It's just a mindset.
Yeah.
Because that's how we were trained. That's how we're raised. And then you sit back and you watch your employees do it, and you're like, what the hell am I doing this for? Like, they're great at this. They can handle this stuff for me.
Yeah, it all comes down to trust.
Yep.
I think any type A person has a hard time trusting others to do it the way that they want it to be done.
Yep.
And then sometimes, like you said, it's objectively, it's not faster for us to do it. And this is even harder for us, a harder pill for us as well, that maybe someone actually can do it better.
Yep.
Or
Yep.
it's different, but it accomplishes the same goal.
Yep.
It's hard. It's hard to trust.
But we figured that out.
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's been a few years now of kind of looking at things differently and operating as a business, we'll say. And that's one thing that I've definitely figured out is there are people that work with us that can do it better than I can. I don't need to, like, that. They should do those things. And I can focus on something maybe I'm better at doing than that they would. And again, as you're inviting people in to the business more, they feel more connected with what you're doing.
Yeah.
And as you grow, those people are there to help you grow and do things. And now you trust them, so you're more likely to give them, more as your new tasks, new problems are coming up.
So you said you bring people in, and it sounds like you're pretty transparent with a lot of people, maybe more so than a lot of law firm owners are. Do you think that's fair?
In some aspects, I think it is.
You can't you got to protect people from, certain things. But I think opening up a little bit helps a lot.
Right.
Gets that buy-in.
Right. So we have weekly meetings with where all the attorneys in the firm meet, and it's hashing out of cases. It's is there any staffing things we need to talk about, other aspects of the business, but it's also here's what's going on with the business, bringing them in, giving them an understanding of why we're doing things, what the goal is, and then, hey, how can you factor in? How can you help us with those things? And, whether that's the associate that's been out maybe a year to the partner that's been doing it for, 25, 30 years, bringing them in so it's more of a collaborative effort, which is one of the big things that, we kind of push as our firm is it's collaborative. It's not my file. It's not your file. It's the firm's file type of thing. So, and we see you get more buy-in that way because people are, hey, they're trusting me to do things.
Well, yeah, and it's right. Like, it's like trust is like this two-way street, right? So if you're bringing them in, they are learning to trust you and the direction you're taking the firm, and then you're in turn trusting them with taking things off your plate to ensure the firm can go where you want it to go.
Right.
Like, because I think everyone's, that goes a long way. We've seen that with our firm too. Like we really want, as much as we possibly can, to involve people at all levels of the firm as we're maneuvering through growth or making decisions, especially the people that a decision is going to touch or affect. That's where I think you can really, especially, it takes a little while, but you earn their trust. Like, hey, maybe we don't always make the decision they wanted us to, but at least they felt like they were heard,
Yeah. And that's what we say, we tell people all the time is you have to trust us.
Yeah.
Like we're not making decisions which we think are going to have a negative impact on the firm. At the end of the day, this is our livelihood. We're trying to build something bigger, something stronger, something that'll last.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of trust, even if we didn't necessarily agree with the decision that you wanted, that we put a lot of thought into it and we thought, okay, this is better. A lot of times we agree with what their decision is because again, there's probably someone better at it than you. But we always said, trust us. We haven't steered you wrong yet. Just not
yet.
Not yet.
That's how I feel. I'm like, it's so hard. It's like sometimes as a business owner, I think people, and I get it because I work for other people and you think that okay, are they listening to me or do they really have my best interests in mind? I mean, I think at least most business owners I know, especially locally here, they really do want to do the best they possibly can for their people, but there's just so much. It's so difficult to run the business and it's so expensive to run these types of businesses that there's a lot that people don't fully understand. And it's really not their job to understand it. But I think bringing people in as much as you possibly can does help, to get more of that buy-in.
Yeah. I mean, these are families that, they have bills to pay too. So the decisions we're making are to hopefully increase their livelihood.
Yeah.
Make them want to show up to work. If you have people that don't want to come to work, then the culture is not going to be good. The business is not going to grow. So, and to your point, it's not the staff's job to know everything. So even though it may not appear, and I'm sure this goes on with you guys as well, that we are maybe addressing something, there's constantly conversations going on behind closed doors, behind the scenes about, after hours, what should we do with this? How should we deal with this? Just to try to make the decision that is best for, everyone in the firm at that point.
Yeah, honestly, like I know I've learned a lot about myself as a leader over the last 6 years, like growing this firm, and I know how I come off. Like being very direct is not always a good thing. Like, and you have to learn how to communicate with people. It's really important. But I think sometimes people would be surprised. And I know it's the same with like you and Gene and Linda. Like we care a lot about people, and sometimes this sounds bad, but I think people understand what I mean. Like it's almost like you wish you didn't. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't really mean that, but it's like, this would be easier if I was a sociopath.
Yep.
No,
you're right.
You know what I mean? Because I just wouldn't give a shit. Yep. Like what people think, but it's like, I care so much. And I'm, it can be tough, right? Because you do want to make everybody happy, but it's virtually impossible to do that.
Right. I think that's spot on. I think what works well with us, and I think it probably can be the same with you guys, is there's 3 partners who are largely making the decisions. The other partners are involved in the conversations, but if there's like we need to do this for the firm, and the 3 of us are going to sit in a room with our director of ops and make the decision. There's 3 different personalities though, and I think that that's what makes us ultimately the most successful, is that we kind of all blend so that we, some of us are very direct, some of us are more laid back in our approach. And I think that collaboratively, when we have those discussions, that's how we ultimately are able to get to a point where we can convey the message in a way that's not overly direct, still get the point across. And I think those 3 different personalities, help kind of shape where the firm is going. But you're right, it's hard because we do care a lot about not only the employees, they have kids, they have spouses, and if these decisions we're making don't just impact the 3 of us. It impacts the 40 people that are now working at the firm. Yeah,
for sure. It actually is thinking about like going back to like tracing my career. I mean, and thinking about even like other like people I know. I'm not gonna name any names. Like there are people I know, not necessarily here, but throughout the country. Like I know they don't really care, and and maybe it's a little bit easier for them. But like you said, to really create a lasting legacy, like something that's a lot bigger than just you, you have to care a lot about people, because we don't have businesses without them.
Right.
And I think people forget about that.
And your staff, your employees, they're not dumb.
No,
they know if you don't care.
Oh yeah,
and
for sure.
and if you don't care, why would they buy in?
Yeah,
right.
I get
and
it.
if you're not demonstrating to them that you will make personal sacrifices for the betterment of the firm and them, then why the hell would they buy in?
Yeah, 100%. What do you think? Because you guys have been, you've been growing, and it seems like, I mean, you've been growing in a couple different ways. It seems like, you're growing, like we'll call it like, I'm going to call it like organically, just from reinvesting back into your current people and your operation. But then you've also been growing through acquiring like other practices and bringing them into the fold.
Yeah.
Both have their challenges. When I think about going and acquiring others and bringing them in, it's obviously your guys are very selective about who you're bringing in. But how do you manage that and like integrate people into your culture and ensure that they're a good culture fit and they're not going to like disrupt like the good things that you have going?
That ongoing relationship we've had with those firms. Again, Rob Grabacki, who and him and his associate will be joining us in January. Rob and I were partners for more than 5 years, let's call it. And the hardest decision I ever made professionally was when I was recruited to this firm that I'm at currently, deciding to leave there. It was one of the most difficult conversations professionally I've ever had. And quite frankly, Rob could have just said, screw you, and never talk to me again. And that's what I expected. Didn't happen. Maintained an ongoing relationship still to this day, talk even if it's not about cases. He understood like, okay, this is what you have to do for your family. That's a guy you can unequivocally trust, right? And we have this ongoing relationship, and I had been working with him long enough to know that this will work. With respect to the Lockport acquisition, the same thing. Marianne Koenig, who heads up their office, Gene and Linda had a prior relationship with her. So they knew exactly who she was, morally, ethically, culturally, and we knew that bringing them on would not disrupt the culture, which, like you guys, we spend so much effort trying to build, because that's really one of the key components to having a sustained business.
How would you define your culture at PB Elder Law?
We have had a lot of long tenured employees, and I think that speaks volumes about what culture you have, especially in today's day and age where you don't see resumes where someone worked at a place for 20 years.
No.
Anyway. You don't see that,
No.
right? So we have employees that have worked, if not with this firm, with partners of this firm for many years. The turnover rate is low. Which I think speaks again to in today's day and age where people are constantly looking for something different. The culture is one where it's open door policy. If there's a problem, come to us. And the three of us said when we took over, our practice will be if there's a problem, we will address it. Things will not fester. It has to be addressed immediately. And I think because people have seen that, people, again, are bought in. They know, hey, if something's not going wrong or something's going wrong, they're going to address it. But it's also they know that we will do whatever we can for them.
Yeah.
And I think that has built up that trust and people get along. There's not the bickering, the nonsense. Like people show up, they're there, they grind, they go home. And, again, we try to make it a place where they enjoy coming every day.
Yeah, we say at the firm, we call it this policy, no jerks. I really call it no assholes. We laugh about it, but you spend so much of your time at work. Like, who wants to go someplace where there's like gossiping and bickering and blah, 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 blah. It's like, and I think going back to what you're saying about people jumping around a lot. Do you have any, why do you think that's happening so much these days? Why people are not staying in one place?
I think there's one of two reasons. I think it's everyone always thinks there's a better opportunity somewhere else.
Yeah.
And what I find funny is just professionally having seen people make those decisions and then try to revert back to where they were because it's not always greener on the other side.
Yeah.
And I think that's just kind of the way the workforce is. Our parents, you had a resume and you probably worked somewhere for many, many years. I think over the years that's just changed where there's less loyalty, which is, again, one of our core values. We're looking for loyalty, in the people that we're going to hire. So I don't know that there's one specific thing I would identify, except that people always think there's a better opportunity. I think the growth of remote work also impacts that as well.
Yeah.
Because people can now, instead of working in the office, they can work all sorts of different places. And so I think there's maybe more opportunity. But again, I always, that is it really greener on the other side? Yeah, I don't know that holds true often.
Yeah. Look, I always say, look, if someone is unhappy with us, we want them to tell us, right? So we can, work on that with them. But if ultimately, look, you're not going to be happy, you should go someplace where you're going to be happy.
Yep.
But you always just caution people, hey, I'm not saying this because it's us, but, make sure you really do your due diligence on where you're going. Talk to people who maybe are here and have been other places. It's okay, have the conversations. So just make sure you know what you're doing because, it's not always what it's cracked or what people think it's going to be when they get someplace else.
Well, you and I have both worked at other firms.
Yeah.
And my partners have worked at other firms. And we sometimes chuckle about, it's not perfect at our firm, right? We're always evolving, right?
For sure.
You need to. It's anyone that tells you it's perfect is full of shit. It's never perfect.
Yeah.
But I also know how we operate, and I know how other places operate, and treatment of people, and how things go elsewhere. And again, if you've never been in it, you don't know. But as someone who has partners who have been through other things, and I've been through things, and we know, and I'm sure you and your profession know, how we treat people here and how maybe they were treated elsewhere isn't the same. But unless you're actually in that environment, you don't recognize and you don't appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, it's look, we're doing our best. We're being extremely intentional, the way you guys are, about the culture, about doing the best we possibly can for people. And I know that sometimes, no matter how hard you try, it makes you sad. You're like, man, I wish, this person's unhappy. I really wish they understood how much we really care and we're trying. Because you that's why we started our firm is we know how most law firm owners think about, especially their non-lawyers.
Right.
It's sad, you know, and it shouldn't be like that. But, I guess, all you can do is just try your best.
Yeah. And to your point, if someone truly has a better opportunity or for their family or other personal reasons they need to do something, I'm not going to be a hypocrite. I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did that when I made the decision to come here. I thought that's what I needed to do for my family. It turned out I ended up being right for me at that point in time, what I needed. So we have had employees who have left who are very valuable employees who to this day I wish, hey, they were still here because it was great working with them. They did a great job. But I get it. They had their reasons for whatever they needed to do to go seek out another opportunity. I'm not going to hold that against them.
Yeah, that's how I am too. Yeah. What do you think you've learned about being a manager or leader since you've stepped in this role? Because that's something I think about a lot. I mean, I don't, some people say like, oh, natural born leader. I don't really think that's true. I think like, look, some people have certain qualities about them that could end up being valuable to them as a leader. But it's hard.
It is hard. I have learned, especially when I first started, looking at things differently, that I personally needed to change a lot about how I operated. I always expected that because my name's on the door, people will come to me if there's really an issue, and that's not the reality. A lot of times you have to be proactive in kind of seeking out and really, people don't want to come and talk to you because they feel like, they're complaining. Having a pulse on what's going on so that these things that maybe exist, hey, I have too many files, hey, I'm under a lot of stress, whatever, just being able to kind of proactively identify those things and then approach that individual, have those conversations, tell them, hey, it's all right, let's try to figure out a solution, then implement that. Mm-hmm. I think that was the biggest difference is, again, I just expected people would come to me because, hey, I'm one of the partners. But I think a lot of times that's not the case. People don't want to come to you. They want...
Yeah, they feel like they're bothering you.
Yeah, he's busy, they're busy, I don't want to bother him. And again, we keep preaching there's an open door policy, but I get it, how it could be difficult to have a conversation. So always just trying to be cognizant of how other people are doing, checking in with people, I think is huge. Don't assume that everyone's okay or that maybe things are as bad as they are or whatever. It's just kind of always checking in and proactively, talking to people. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, like that's something that, I'm trying to get a lot better with. Like I've had this like mentality like, oh man, this person probably doesn't want to talk to me. Mm-hmm. They don't want me coming over and saying hi. Yep. And I was like, maybe that's not true. I mean, because I actually do care about everybody. I just like feel like I'm bothering people or I'm making people feel uncomfortable. Right. But it's like I don't think I should feel that way. I mean, we have such a close knit group, such an amazing team. I'm like so proud of all of our people. But I always tell people like, obviously like I want people to understand like it's like same way with us, right? Like we're open door policy. We want to help you. We want to know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, no matter how hard we look, it may seem like we should see something, but it may not be as obvious as you think. Yeah. You have to bring it to us. Now, look, sometimes there's channels like, hey, not everything can come to me all the time, but if you feel like you're not being heard by going through the right channel, just bring it to me. But I always tell people like, and I think this is good advice for like anybody, and I wish I would have known this when I worked someplace for other people. If you have a problem or if there's an issue, you will be in such good graces with your supervisor or the owner of that business. If when you go to them, you're not just like, hey, here's an issue, solve it. It's like, hey, I've identified this issue or I have this problem and I have a couple of proposed solutions. Exactly. This is what I think we should do. What do you think? That'll be like, oh, thank you. Like, you know what I mean? No, it's so true. And that's what we always tell people. If you have a problem at the end of the day, if you need help, that's what we're here for. Yeah. But don't just drop the problem in my lap or one of the parts. Come to us and say, hey, this is what's going on. I'm thinking about this, or this. This is what I think makes the most sense. What do you think? I always appreciate that more than someone just coming to me and here's a problem. I need you to fix it. Yep. And you hit it right on the head. Don't assume that the business owner knows what the problem is. Yeah. Right? There are so many different things on a day-to-day basis between actual clients or related to the business or even in your own personal life that you're thinking about where, again, it may seem obvious, but you're not seeing it because you got so many other things going on. And that's why we always tell people, you bring it to us. I don't care if you think it's a problem or not. Let us determine whether it's a problem, but don't anticipate that I know it's a problem or that my partners know it's a problem just because it appears obvious. Yeah, because like the sooner we know, the sooner we can intervene and help. Yes. And like sometimes people wait and then they always are like, oh crap, I should have brought this to you sooner. I was trying to like, help this person myself, or I was trying, and we appreciate that, but it's like, we need to know kind of what's going on so we can also help you help them or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
Because the sooner we get involved, the better. But again, yeah, I think it's just, and I get it because like I'm like, oh man, like I think back when I worked for somebody else, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna give this guy some credit now. Like it was impossible for him to see everything that was going on. And, and what I thought was obvious was like just not obvious.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, there's every day the hours you're in the office between the emails, the phone calls, the discussions about the business, there's specific files, this person. Again, we have 40 employees. We try to keep our finger on the pulse, but the reality is it just doesn't. You can only have a constant idea of what's going on with so many things. And other things you're kind of relying on those, whether it's supervisors, other attorneys, staff, whoever, to bring it to you and say, hey, here's the problem. I need to talk to you about it. Because the likelihood that I just know or we just know what's going on it's not likely.
Do you, and I'll explain this, but like when someone has like a problem with something you're doing, that you've done, and say it's like something you really believe it's the right thing to do you take it personally? No. That's good. That's a good skill to have because a lot of people take it personally and then you're trying not to.
I don't take it personally because I know that I'm not perfect in what I'm doing, right?
Yeah.
And I know that nobody's ever going to agree.
Yeah.
That's why you have people around you that you trust to give you, just like we do with clients.
Yeah.
They may do things you don't agree with. At the end of the day, as long as they're informed about what their options are and what their potential decisions could be, the choice they may make you don't agree with, I don't take it personally. Yeah. I mean, maybe I should take it a little bit more personally.
No, I don't think you should. Like, I think that's the way to be.
It's, if anything, I take it more as when that happens where we make a decision that people don't agree with or that someone doesn't agree with, I then, instead of taking it personally, oftentimes try to look at it through why they're looking at it from that perspective to figure out, okay, am I missing something?
Right.
And if I am, then okay, let's try to correct things rather than they think, I just don't know what I'm doing. But I totally could understand why, hey, trust me to do this stuff, right? And why you would take it personally. But I think I've just kind of I just am able to brush it off for whatever reason.
That's good. You got to be like that. When you as you've been growing, obviously, when you add more and more people, obviously, we all do our best to hire the right people, and people who are going to embody your values, be in line with your mission. But anytime you add people, you're adding personalities, you're adding people who communicate differently. How have you learned to navigate that, and maybe learn ways to get through to certain people and change your communication style, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you we've made bad hires, right?
Everyone has.
Everyone has, right?
Yeah.
So that's where you start is why did that bad hire happen? Oftentimes it is because you need to fill a void and you jump the gun just to fill it because you want to backfill and you want to keep moving. So one of the biggest things we've learned, and I think you guys do the same thing, is we put people through a hiring funnel now. And you have to create certain tasks and you have to go through certain interviews so that we can get an idea of whether your personality will blend with the other personalities in the office. Now, everyone's not going to be the same, but will it work? There's some people you'll interview and right away you'll know this just isn't going to fit with what we're doing, either from a personality standpoint or from what we're looking for core value wise. So really kind of stepping back, and even if it takes a little bit longer to hire, generally a better decision, because when you think about the time and the money that goes into making bad hires, by the time you hire that person, you have all the labor that goes into the hiring. You then have that time period where it takes you to figure out, okay, is this a bad hire or are they just having a tough time adapting to what we're doing here?
Yeah.
And then ultimately, if it is a bad hire, the amount of time generally that you have wasted and now to try to backfill again that position, you're better off just taking your time in the first place. Maybe things slow down a little bit. Maybe people have to step up a little bit, but taking your time, putting them through that funnel to really make sure that they kind of blend with you.
Yep.
Better approach than jumping the gun.
Dude, I can never remember the exact numbers on this, but let's just say, and this, it's actually shocking, how they have calculations on how much it costs you when you lose somebody. It's wild, how expensive it is. It's so yeah, you want to avoid that as much as possible. Do you have any major red flags? Like if you see it in like an interview, you're like, oh no way. No matter how good the person looks on paper.
Yeah. I would say someone that leads off an interview with compensation questions is a red flag right away. Like we'll get there, but we're meeting each other first.
Or like, how much vacation do I get?
Yeah. Like
we give you a lot, but like I can't believe you just asked that. I can't believe it. How long do I have here?
Yes. Yeah. Or someone that will, with attorneys, someone that will maybe start telling, or to try to validate themselves, start telling maybe necessarily stories that they probably shouldn't be telling.
Yep.
Right away, red flag. With staff's a little bit trickier because I have found that a lot of times when you're interviewing staff and employees, they're more reserved in the interview. So I'm looking for, do you know what we do, right? Did you take the 10 or 15 minutes to go through our website and can really figure out, do you know who we are? Do you know what we do? Do you know who our client base is? Because if you spend 10 or 15 minutes on our website, it's pretty clear, Yeah. I didn't expect you to come in with a book of questions, but I expect some intelligent questions about what we do, and culture questions are great. Like, who are the type of people that work here? That person that asked me that question, they've intrigued me already.
Yeah.
Because now I know that they're kind of thinking about, well, will I fit here? Does this make sense? So, just spending some time to prepare for the interview and not just show up and go through the motions, that drives me nuts.
100%. I mean, like when I'm looking at a resume, like oftentimes I won't even hire somebody or interview somebody. I don't want them interviewing them if they've jumped around to a lot of jobs.
Yep.
But in the interview process, my biggest pet peeve is like talking trash about your current employer.
Sure.
It's like, you don't need to do that.
Nope.
Like there's such a professional way to talk about why you want change. It's like, we can read between the lines. Like airing out dirty laundry, talking trash about the place you're currently at, because that's usually what it is, right? While you're currently employed, you're interviewing. Bad. Because like you think about, if that person's willing to do that, they're going to come to you. And the last thing we want as business owners is someone toxic in the work environment. And like that is like screams toxicity.
Yeah, you spend, as a business owner, you spend so much time, especially the same thing you guys are doing. You're growing. You're hiring more personalities. As you bring more people into the fold, trying to maintain that culture that you created, which makes your brand what it is, which makes it why people want to come work for you, that's more difficult to do.
Yeah.
And if you get one or two toxic people who all of a sudden push their own agendas or whatever the case is without kind of understanding that, hey, there's a bigger picture here, that's a huge problem.
Yeah, you got to be relentless in defending your culture.
Correct.
It means making really tough decisions, but you have to.
Yep.
For sure. You have me laughing though, because I bet you there's some people listening to what you just said were like, you mean to tell me people are interviewing there and they don't even know what you do? Oh yeah.
Yep.
Oh yeah. I remember when I used to handle the initial, I used to handle like every part of the interview process. And the initial phone screening, you'd say to somebody like, so why do you want to work for us? Or what do you know about us? They'd be like, well, you're a law firm, right? And you're like, whoa. We sure are.
Yeah.
You know anything else?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like you got to show, I always tell like even like younger people like looking for jobs, like it is so impressive when someone interviews with you and they like, cause I see it, like you've probably seen it, like they've gone through all of your team members' bios. They've read every page on your website. They know about this, about that. They've gone on and read your Google reviews. Like they really like, it shows that you really, really want to be there. That's a big deal.
Yeah, thankfully, in acting as more of a business owner, I've pulled back out of the hiring aspect, and now we have other people who kind of do the hiring. But I can tell 2 seconds after I ask the question how the interview went, just based upon the facial expression, whether this person was prepared, whether they were not.
Yeah.
I think, again, people being shocked at that. Well, it's human nature that people act like this. You go to settlement conferences, and the attorney on the other side doesn't know shit about the case, right? Yeah. So it's not just a person's interviewing with you. I can't believe that they wouldn't be prepared. We see this professionally. Other attorneys show up to cases and they're not prepared. They don't know shit about the case. They're misstating things. So it's more of just a human personality than it is about a title or a profession.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say, like, through all your growth, obviously I know you guys, I've gotten to know Eugene and Linda really well. You guys are very intentional about what you're doing. Like, what's your vision for PB Elder Law? Like, where do you want to take it?
So the vision started with 10 attorneys, and we're about to be at 11. So, when we started, the 3 of us took over in 2022. you don't know what you don't know, right? And again, at that point, we were all really just attorneys. We were not business owners. We were buying a business, but we weren't acting as business owners. And as we have continued to step back more into that role and having that mindset as business owners, those original goals, were there. I think that the goal is that, to continue to grow, but to do it in a sustained way. We're at a point now where we have largely kind of scaled back some of the advertising because we don't have the infrastructure to just turn the dial and just go, right? We still have a good amount of it, but everyone's busy. So now it's really, we're kind of stepping back and looking at it from a scaling perspective and making sure that we have all the people in place so that as we continue to have this growth, which again started with, we wanted a Southtowns presence, we wanted a Northtowns presence. So now we're in Niagara County, now we're in East Aurora, we have our offices in Cheektowaga behind the airport. I think eventually the goal will be to move outside of the Buffalo area because the kind of work that we do, people need this kind of work. We have an aging population, and quite frankly, if you kind of look around, there's a lack of really true estate and elder law firms out there. There's some here and there, but this is not. Most of the people who are doing this kind of work are more in the general practitioner field. Then this is all I do. And, us doing all of that, we have now 11 attorneys who, any area of this practice, whether it's me, whether it's one of the associates, we all speak the same language, we all practice the same. So eventually moving out of the Western New York area, I think, would be the next goal.
What do you think is the hardest part about scaling or growing?
I think that the most difficult part so far has been, is someone too busy, or is it they're not working efficiently and there's more production? So the most difficult part, I think, is do you need to hire more, or is it a productivity issue and efficiency? Because it's easy to just say, everyone's busy, let's hire more. But that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. As the advent of AI continues, there's other platforms where you can take certain responsibilities away from staff to put them more where they should be suited. And again, you didn't necessarily need to hire someone to do that. So I think the big thing right now that we're, I don't want to say struggling with, but making sure we really have down is, do we have enough infrastructure in place, or do we really need more infrastructure and it's not a productivity issue? So those are the kinds of things that we're now working on measuring more and more of to make sure we're making the right decisions as we grow.
For sure. And I think that's a great point. And, that's something that I think everybody has done. Like when you're growing fast, you don't realize how difficult it is, because it's just like the second you solve this problem, here's the next one. Cause it's all good things, you're growing, but it's sometimes, I get it, the team is like, well, why aren't you hiring people? And what I think is important for team members to understand, especially as long as that your leaders, your owners are doing this the right way, is you always want to start with systems, processes, how certain key members are structuring their days, any way you can help, technology. Why? Because if you just run out and hire people, all the obvious stuff, it's expensive, it's yada, yada, all the effort to get people in, blah, blah. But then if all of a sudden you go backwards and say, well, we got the people, now we're assessing the stuff we should have done first. We don't actually need that person or that person. Well, you don't ever, if you care about people, like I know we both do, you don't ever want to be in the situation where you're laying people off.
It's the worst part of the job.
Because of the mistake that you made. Because you overcalculated. And, I always, talk to people I can trust, and I'm like, you have to understand that, we take this really seriously. People are putting their trust in us. You don't want to be in that situation. And you don't want to have to let either that person or somebody else go because you made a bad mistake.
It's the worst part of the job is letting someone go.
It's
I've had, friends, other people be like, oh, you get to hire and fire. And I'm like, it sucks. Hiring and firing is the worst part of the job. It is the worst. Having to, I still to this day, you get pits in your stomach. I don't like doing that. Someone came in with a paycheck, and now at the end of the day, for whatever reason, and one of the things one of our former partners told us is, I've never fired anyone. An employee has fired themselves, right? I don't want to fire someone. You've probably just done something or lack thereof, which led to that point. But in the scaling and the growth, the difficulty is not compromising what got you there in the first place, which, like you guys, unquestionably, the two things that we will never sacrifice is the culture and the work quality.
Yep.
That's what created the brand in the first place, is people trusting us that this is the work quality. It's the same with you guys. That's why we refer cases to you guys. We know you guys do things a certain way that will lead to good results for your clients.
Yeah, and right back at you. Yep.
When you're scaling and growing, that's the difficulty, is you're bringing on more people, you're getting bigger, there's more touch points, but not losing what made you you in the first place.
100%. Like I was just having this conversation with people before. I'm like, I actually now that we've done this for like 6 years, I know for certain, it's like from my perspective as a PI law firm owner, it's way easier to just crank the dial on advertising, sign as many cases as possible. Don't give a shit if people drop us or if there's churn in the client base, because we're just making money hand over fist. We're stressing everybody out. Like we don't care about the value anymore, and we just ride this thing. And like that's not what it's all about. Like it's about doing things the right way, and the right way is hard.
It is.
Like same with you guys, like having that standard of excellence every single day, and then finding ways to make it better every single day. That is very, very hard.
Yep.
But you can't lose track of like why you got to where you are, and that's like I think your guys like unique value proposition is like you guys do things at like the highest possible level all the time.
Yep. The standards are high.
Yeah.
I mean, but again,
the stakes are high.
The stakes are high. The standards are high. They're not unattainable standards. I would never set a standard on someone that I or my partners can't meet. That's not it. But if you want to work here, and our brand is our brand, which is we are trying to be identified based upon the quality of work that we produce as when you need this kind of work, this is who you call. Just like you guys, right? You can't sacrifice that for growth. And to your point, we could turn up the dial and make the gross number bigger, but you'd be sacrificing everything you created for a short-term result.
For sure. Yeah, and then you just lose it all.
Yeah, that's it.
You just go backwards. Okay, I want to pivot a little bit. Just I have a couple of random questions for you.
All right.
Favorite wing spot in Buffalo?
Barbell.
Okay, what's your order?
Honey butter barbecue.
How many will you eat?
If I'm really going after it, I with a couple beers, I could probably put down 20 if I had to.
yeah. You're the rest of the day, you're like, I am good.
Yeah. And that's not going to be a lunchtime thing. Yeah. I mean, the medium are great too, but like ultimately the honey butter barbecue are great.
What's your favorite, like maybe not so well known like restaurant, like maybe you and your wife Sarah go to, or like what, like I mean, it's always easy to pick like the popular ones. Do you have any like places that you guys really like?
So Hidden Gem.
Yeah.
And it's an old school restaurant. It's the Dove, and it's Blaisdell Orchard Park.
I've never been there.
It's great.
The Dove?
Yeah, it's great hometown, like Italian food. Give you a loaf of bread when you leave type of stuff.
Come on.
It's good shit, man. And so I have a soft spot for them because when COVID happened, we had just moved out to Orchard Park maybe a year or so before that happened. That place stayed open. And they were still kicking out piping hot meals. You pick them up in the back, and the food was like delicious. So when we're really like, it's comfort food, right? But it's good. It's good stuff. So that's got a place.
Okay, I like that. I actually got a good nugget out of that. Sometimes people just say the same old stuff. I'm like, come on, the Dove. All right, you're a big Bills fan.
Yep.
What's your prediction for the rest of the year? For those who are listening, we're filming this the day after the Bengals win.
Yeah, well, now I'm on the high of yesterday. Well, the third quarter, I was on the down. Like, God, it's freaking over,
Yeah.
Now I'm on the high. I mean, this year to me is unlike anything in the Josh Allen era because you have the possibility of the other three elite guys not being in the playoffs.
Yep.
Whereas if Burrow, Lamar, Mahomes are not there, you have everyone else is untested except Superman. Yeah. Right. So it's an odd team because they're so injury riddled, and the defense has been up and down. The offense has showed out up and down. But once Josh gets to December, it's like a different thing, right? It's like he takes off. The record is unquestionable in December, and I think just get in. What's disappointing is I don't think they're going to have a home playoff game. Like the likelihood of that is very unlikely at this point, unless things go haywire in New England. But I think get in and it'll be interesting because the other guys are just not tested.
Wouldn't it be like the most Bills story ever, though? Buffalo story, where like all these other years we're like, we're so good, and then we're let down. Then this whole year we're like, we suck. Oh my god, we're like, oh my god, what is going on? Fire everybody! Like, wait a minute. Like, and then it just happens.
Yeah, and it's like it's such a weird phase because in the Diggs days, the offensive identity was simple. Like we just throw the ball all over the place. Now we have games where we do that. A lot of times we run. So you just don't know game to game really what you're getting out of this team.
Yeah.
But if you got Josh Allen, that's really what you need.
I agree. Okay, one last question, serious question. You're a proud dad and husband. What has being a husband and dad taught you about being a leader in the workplace?
Patience.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. My wife probably won't agree with that. Patience.
Like, why are you lying?
Are you shitting me? But yes. Am I perfect at it? No. But patience really, I look back at kind of where I was maybe 7-8 years ago, even before we had kids, and much more kind of quick to just, make a decision. Yeah. Whereas now I try to put more thought into it. And thankfully I have great partners who the three of us really are able to kind of keep each other in check, because a lot of times we do want to make a rash decision and one of us logically is speaking is hey, that's stupid, don't do that.
Yeah.
But I think that's the biggest thing is, it kind of goes back to the hiring conversation we had. We had a valuable employee leave, and the thing we probably could have done is just backfill it really quickly. But I don't think that ultimately would have gotten us to where we are now, which is where I think we've made good hires. I think we're, took some more time, but I think patience was going to pay off there.
I agree. It's great advice. All right. So if people want to find you and get in touch with you, how do they do that?
Yeah. So our phone number is 716-204-1055. Or if you don't want to call us because you just want to go through the website, pbelderlaw.com. You can submit an online inquiry there. You can directly submit it to whatever attorney you want, or you can send it to a general, and then it'll just someone will call you back and schedule an appointment.
And Dan's private cell phone number is, no, just kidding. Dude, thanks for doing this. It's been awesome.
I appreciate you having me.
You.
Thank you.
All right.